Okay, what we're doing here on 5.3 is we're dividing polynomials using long division. Now, long division, you may recall, is basically, remember when we did stuff like this in grade school? You had, if you had 75 divided by 5, you would say, well, 5 goes into 7 one time. 1 times 5 is 5, and then you'd subtract. 7 minus 5 is 2. Then bring down your 5. So 5 goes into 25 5 times. 5 times 5, 5 times 5 is 25. Adds up to 0. So 5 goes into 75 15 times with a remainder of 0. So it goes in evenly. Well, for this, we're going to be doing the exact same thing, except we are doing it with polynomials. So let's see here. Erase all that. So basically, we are doing this piece right here, x squared plus 7x plus 12 divided by x plus 3. Now, you may be thinking, how do I think of what to multiply this by to get it to multiply into that, all that over there? It's not quite that complicated. All we need to think about in this case is the highest degree, all right, that x out front. So think of that one and the one out front. So what would I multiply x by to make it an x squared? Well, I would multiply it by an x. So x times x is x squared. Okay? And now I distribute that back to the front. So x times x is x squared. X times 3 is 3x. Okay? Let's go ahead and subtract those. Oh, that is not how I wanted to do it. Need to make that smaller. Alright, so that's an x. From here, you simply subtract. So I'll subtract the x, and I'll subtract the 3x. So x squared minus x is 0. 7 minus 3 is 4, so we have 4x. And then we bring down the 12. Okay? Now we do the exact same thing again. It's just the same pattern over and over until we're done. So how many times does x go into 4x? What would I multiply x by to make it a 4x? Well, I multiply it by 4. So 4 times x is 4x. So 4x. Then do the 3. 4 times 3 is 12. So plus 12. We're subtracting, so it's minus 4x minus 12. So 4 minus 4 is 0. 12 minus 12 is also 0. So we have a remainder of 0, and we have nothing more to bring down. There's nothing more out here to bring down. So the answer, if I divide x squared plus 7x plus 12 divided by x plus 3, is x plus 4. Number two is essentially the same thing as number 1. We're going to set it the same way. Now, there is one minor difference. Whatever you are dividing into, all right, we need to fill it in with all the different degrees. So here's my point. We're going to divide by x squared, and there's no x value in the middle here. So we need to include that. So that's a plus 0x, kind of as a placeholder. So if you're missing one of the exponents, you need to fill it in. Otherwise, you're going to have trouble. And we'll start with x cubed minus 4x squared minus 0x minus 0. Now, if any along the line, like if we get to this point and we are to 0, we'll stop there. If we get to this point, we're to 0, we'll stop there. So if we get to a 0 and there's nothing, if we get done and there's zeros, nothing left, we'll just stop. But you have to fill in the zeros, or this will not work. That is the biggest thing students forget to do. So here we go. Remember, it's just the highest degree. I'm going to multiply x squared times x to get its x cubed, because x times x squared is x cubed. All right. And then I go on down the line. X times 0x, well, that's 0, so plus 0x. Let's do that in the right color so I'm not freaking everybody out. Plus 0x, which I know it's nothing, but we're still a placeholder. And then x times negative 16, so that's negative 16x. And then we're subtracting, so I'm going to go back, minus the x cubed, minus the 0, and add the 16. So, x cubed minus x cubed is 0. Negative 4x squared plus 0 is still, well, negative 4x squared. Negative 0, well, that's actually, those should be positive, because 0 is not a positive or negative, so whatever. But 0 plus 16 is 16, so 16x. All right. Then we'll bring down the 0. And we'll do it again. So, for this one, again, x squared times what gets me negative 4x squared. Negative 4. So if I multiply negative 4 times x squared, I get negative 4x squared. You notice how every single time this the leading coefficient always cancels out. It cancels out there. It cancels out there. They always cancel out. I'm going to keep on going. Negative 4 times 0 is 0. Negative 4 times negative 16 is positive 64. And then we'll cancel them out. Negative 4x squared minus, sorry, not cancel them out. We got to flip the signs, because remember we're subtracting. So we have to distribute that negative. So negative 4 plus 4 is 0. 16 minus 0 as well as 16, so 16x. And then 0 minus 64 is negative 64. And there's nothing more over here to pull down, so we're done at this point. And that is my dog, who decided to go crazy for some reason, if you're listening to that right now. But anyways, so x cubed minus 4x squared, that divided by x squared minus 16 is x minus 4 plus that remainder, 16x minus 64 divided by x squared minus 16. That would be the final answer. All right. Now I know that sounds more complicated than the original. In many ways it is. But when it doesn't come out evenly, basically what you do is you put the remainder, whatever the remainder is, you go ahead and put it over what you were dividing by, and just tack it on the end. That's all you got to do, tack it on the end. All right, number 3 and number 4, I'm going to kind of burn through relatively quickly. I think these are just like number 1 and number 2. I don't believe there's any tricks. They're just bigger. It's all it is. All right, you are dividing by something larger than a binomial. So, but other than that, the rules are the same. We're going to do it the exact same way. We're following the exact same pattern. So here we go. We're going to divide x squared plus 7x, that's x cubed, I'm sorry. Learn to read. X cubed plus 7x squared plus 10x minus 6. All of that is being divided by x squared plus 4x minus 2. X squared plus 4x minus 2. Now this time we don't have to add anything in, don't have to add any zeros. Remember, you have to have every single exponent. You got a squared, a single, and then nothing. A cubed, a squared, a single, and then nothing. You have to have all of those parts. All right, and from here it's exactly the same. I'm going to start off by multiplying by x. The reason for it, because when I distribute that out, x times x squared is x cubed. So now you see those first ones cancel out. That's the goal. And then keep distributing. X times 4x. Well, that's 4x squared. And then x times negative 2 is negative 2x. Okay? From here, you're subtracting. So if we subtract, flip the signs. That's a negative, that's a negative, that becomes positive. X cubed minus x cubed is 0. 7x squared minus 4 is 3. So 3x squared. And 10 plus 2 is 12, so plus 12x. Alright? And then bring down the negative 6 and start again. This time I'm going to multiply by 3. Again, because 3 times x squared is 3x squared. We're distributing just like the last one. Distribute there, distribute there, distribute there. 3 times x squared is 3x squared. 3 times 4x is 12x. The right color. And 3 times negative 2 is negative 6. Which that's kind of nice. You notice how they're all the same? That's exactly where you want to be. So when I switch the signs in order to subtract, they all cancel out, and we're left with a 0. Now again, if we don't have a 0, that's okay. You just have a remainder. So in this case, when I divide those out, the answer is x plus 3. Right? Number 4, same idea. If you haven't tried one on your own yet, I would try number 4 on your own. Go ahead and pause it, give it a shot, but let's go. So I got x squared plus 3x plus 2, which I'm dividing into 2x to the 4th plus 3x cubed plus 5x. Let's write that a little cleaner, plus 5x minus 1. Looks to know. Again, the only thing difference. I almost forgot something. 4, 3, 1, 0. We're missing that one, so let's go back and fill it in before we get halfway done with the whole thing. So that's the 3. So it's plus 0x squared plus 5x minus 1. And we'll extend that all the way over the top. And here we go. Just like before, focus on the front ones and then distribute. So x squared to x to the 4th, 2x to the 4th. I got to multiply it by 2 to get the number up there, and I got to multiply by an x squared to get the x up there. And then we'll distribute that to all 3 of those. So 2x squared times x squared is 2x to the 4th. 2x squared times 3x, 2 times 3 is 6. X squared times x is x cubed. And then 2 times 2 is 4. And x squared times no x is x squared. Now again, let's talk about this for just a second before we go on. You notice how the x's, x to the 4th, x to the 3rd, x squared, they all line up. If we had not added this 0, we would have a 5x right there. And these would not line up anymore. So that is why we add that 0. Okay, so we distributed. So now we subtract. Subtract, subtract, subtract. Flip your signs. 2x to the 4th minus 2x to the 4th is 0. 3x cubed minus 6x cubed is negative 3x cubed. 0 minus 4 is negative 4x squared. Then bring down the 5x. And repeat. This time I'm going to multiply by negative 3x. Because when we distribute that out, negative 3 times x squared is negative 3x cubed. Negative 3x times x squared is negative 3. Pick the right number. pick the right color, negative 3x cubed. Negative 3x times 3x is negative 6x squared, and negative 3x times 2 is negative 6x. Draw your line. Now we're subtracting, so flip your signs. This becomes a positive, this becomes a positive, this becomes a positive. So negative 3 plus 3 is 0, again. Negative 4 plus 6 is 2, so 2x squared. 5 plus 6 is 11, so plus 11x. And then last but not least, bring down your negative 1, which I can already tell you right now, this is not going to come out even. And that's okay. Alright, last one. I'm going to multiply by positive 2. Because again, distribute that to all three of those. So 2 times x squared is 2x squared. 2 times 3x is 6x. And 2 times 2 is 4. Then we subtract. Flip your signs. 2 minus 2 is 0. 11 minus 6 is 5. And negative 1 minus 4 is negative 5. So there's nothing more over here to drop out. There's nothing more over here to drop down, so we're done. We're stuck with a remainder of 5x minus 5. So the answer to this one is kind of long and kind of hairy. It's 2x squared minus 3x plus 2. We got to add a remainder, plus 5x minus 5 divided by x squared plus 3x plus 2. And like I said, this may seem longer than the original question itself, but this is considered the reduced form.